guys, it's Adrian. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm here to bring you my April and May wrap up. I read lots of books in April, not so many books in May, but that's okay. Two quick little notes before we get started. Most of these books I read during my 30-day reading challenge for the month of April. I have 3 vlogs. The last week I didn't vlog because I didn't get to read any books at all because I had such a crazy week. I did great in my 30-day reading challenge up until the last week. I think I read a total of 1,800 pages, which is pretty good. I'd like to do it again. I was considering doing it in the month of June, but I think I need to like slow down a little bit and focus more on my videos and less on my actual reading, if that makes any sense. So I think I'm going to do it again in September. And secondly, if you're interested in any further opinions of any of these books, most of them I read during that period, I would suggest you check out my 30-day reading vlogs. There you can see what I thought about the book as I'm going along. I'm going to try to keep this short. I have a bunch of books to talk about. Not quite as many as I did in my last wrap up, but still a good number. First up, I completed Ice Like Fire, which is the second book to the Snow Like Ashes trilogy. I gave this one a 3.5 stars. If you're not familiar with the Snow Like Ashes trilogy, it follows a girl named Mira, and she is a refugee from the Winter Kingdom. The Winter Kingdom has been conquered by the Spring Kingdom, and there are only 7 refugees left. It follows the story of these 7 refugees, particularly Myra in the first book, and what they have to do in order to be able to try to restore their kingdom. In the first book, they're looking for Winter's conduit, which gives them the ability to control magic. I enjoyed the first one. This one I enjoyed as well. I just felt like the pacing was off. The first half of the book was a little bit slow, was a little bit hard to get into. What I did really enjoy about this book is that we saw a lot of the kingdoms, a lot of the descriptions of the kingdoms, how they look, their culture, their architecture, which I thought was really well done. I enjoyed this one a lot. We also got to see Mather's perspective in this book, which we didn't see in the first book. I enjoyed this book enough for me to be able to continue on with the series. Next up, I finished Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. Finally, guys! Finally, can we all take a moment of silence, please? Adrian has finally finished the Harry Potter series. Took long enough. I'm only 33, but you know, it's done. This was a great book. It lived up to all of my expectations, but quick little funny story, guys. In all of the days of Harry Potter, I have managed to avoid any spoilers. As far as movies goes, as far as book goes, I didn't want to know what happened in the end of the series. I wanted to find out myself, and I managed that until I was about, I don't know, not even a 10th of the way through the book. I think I had just picked it up. And we were casually talking about Willy Wonka in the car. And my husband made a reference to something in the Harry Potter book that I didn't know that was the big spoiler. And it made me sad. Thanks a lot, husband. Thanks a lot. Anyway, I really enjoyed this book. I gave it a 5 stars. It was a great ending. I am satisfied, and hallelujah, I can finally say I've read the Harry Potter series. Next up, I finished A Horse and His Boy. I said in my last wrap up, I think that was my March wrap up, that I wasn't gonna finish this one. I did actually end up finishing it. I read it as audio. I didn't like this book, guys. I didn't. I remember not liking it when I was younger as well. This is the 3rd book if you're reading them chronologically in the Narnia series. I read it with my kids. My kids absolutely lost interest, so they didn't want to finish it. I finished it on my own. I gave this a 2 stars. I have great appreciation for C.S. Lewis and for the Narnia stories. This one was my least favorite out of all of them. This follows a boy. I don't even know what his name is. I forget. He's from the Southern Kingdoms who know of Narnia but don't know much about Narnia. He is a fisherman's son and his father does not treat him very well. He meets one day a talking Narnian horse who has been captured from Narnia as well, and they make a trip heading towards Narnia, and it follows their adventures. That's really pretty much all the story is about. The only part that I loved about this book is when we finally see Aslan. There's something so majestic about him. I always get goosebumps. I love Aslan. I just didn't like this book, and I feel awful because they're like classics. Sorry. And then I figured I might as well just binge read and finish the Snow Like Ashes trilogy, so I read the 3rd one, Frost Like Nights. This one I gave a 3 stars. This one probably was my least favorite of the story. I feel like the pacing was way off. The entire book was really slow, and the ending happened very quickly, but it was very predictable, and it was one of those endings that you think, come on guys, this is the most logical option that you could have thought of. Like, why do you have to make things so complicated? I did enjoy it. I gave it a 3 stars. It was okay. A little disappointing as far as endings go though. What can I say? Next up on audio, I listened to All Are Wrong Todays by Mestai. This is a science fiction book that helps fulfill my quarterly reading challenge. One of my quarterly reading challenges. The other ones are kind of epically failing at the moment, but that's a different story for a different day. This one follows a guy named Tom, and he's from 2017, but the 2017 that we sort of envisioned back in the 50s. There was this great invention made back in the 1960s that has changed the future of the world, and Tom tries to go back in time to see this, and he accidentally sort of screws up the timeline, and he ends up back in 2017, but in 2017 as we knew it. And so he's dealing with all the repercussions of that. I really enjoyed this one. I listened to it on audio, and it was read by Mestai himself, who was hysterical. The only thing I will have to say about this audiobook is there is one chapter that is filled with F words. Really, that's all he says, and a few other curse words in between. And it's kind of awkward to listen to. I mean, it's funny, but it's awkward. This was my favorite kind of book. I love parallel universe books. I discovered them last year, and I can't stop reading them. So I was completely in love. But this book was mind-blowing, especially towards the end. You were just like, what the heck? Who, what, and how? And it made me tired. But I really loved it. It got a 4 stars. I would definitely recommend it if you have not yet read it. Next up was another book that I should have liked a lot more than I did, I feel like, and I didn't. And that was The Princess Diarist by Carrie Fisher. For those of you who don't know, live under a rock, or just don't really care, Carrie Fisher was the woman who played Princess Leia, and she passed away. It was very tragic for the Star Wars fans. I enjoy Star Wars well enough. Not my favorite thing. We're actually watching them with my 9-year-old at the moment, but that's neither here nor there. This follows her experiences when she was recording the original Star Wars trilogy, but this one unfortunately dealt mostly with her affair with Harrison Ford. It was a good half of the book, at least. And that's not really what I wanted to hear about. I know it should have been included because it was a huge part of her Star Wars experience, and it definitely talked about how that changed her perspective of herself. It wasn't bad per se, it just wasn't what I was expecting, and she seemed kind of grumpy. Again, it was an audiobook read by Carrie Fisher herself, so maybe she was trying to be funny, I don't know, but she seemed kind of grumpy to me. Anybody else? I don't know. I liked it. It was okay. Not my favorite book. Next up is a book that I recently hauled, and that is Stay With Me. This one follows a Nigerian couple who are trying to conceive a child. They have been trying for some years now, and they just can't. And they agreed before getting married that they would stay a monogamous couple, but the family of the husband arranges for him to have a second wife, and he goes along with this. And it really impacts their marriage. I will say this book I thought would be mostly about the way the wife is handling the second wife, and while it is a good part of the story, it is nowhere near what this story is about. What I loved about this book is that it deals with 1980s Nigerian culture and how you're having this struggle between the more traditional families and the families who are trying to be more modern, especially with the older generation and the younger generation, and also how infertility affects the Nigerian culture in both the more traditional and the more modern families. In that aspect, I think this book was done phenomenally. You really see the struggle that especially the wife is going through. This book was frustrating. I went through moments where I didn't like it at all, and I went through moments where I absolutely loved it. So I ended up giving this one a 3.5 stars. One of my bigger issues is that there was Nigerian politics thrown through, which I think was very relevant to the story, but I don't know enough about 1980s Nigerian politics. Let's face it, guys, I know zero about 1980s Nigerian politics. So I kind of felt like it was just like randomly dropped in. I'm sure there was a reason for it. I'm sure it all kind of goes together. I just didn't pick it up because I didn't know enough about it. And so I felt like that was a little off. I felt like some of the plot twists were a little bit off, but I did enjoy the book. I did think it was very well done. I would recommend this book if you're interested in Nigeria, Nigerian politics, and Nigerian culture, and how the culture and families are affected by things like infertility and how the family structure affects all of these things. It was very interesting, very eye-opening, and very enlightening. And then I read A Wicked Lovely by Marissa Marr. This is the first in the Wicked Lovely series. This one follows a girl named Ashlyn, and Ashlyn, her mom, and her grandma are all able to see fairies. Aislin's mom, however, has passed away. So she lives with her grandma, and her grandma raised her, and while she was growing up, she was taught to avoid fairies, pretend like you can't see them, stay away from them, don't draw their attention. And that has always worked for her until she's visited by the High Summer King, Keenan, who believes she is supposed to be her winter queen. She wants nothing to do with these fairies. But unfortunately, she doesn't have a choice. This story is relatively simple, so I can't talk too much about details because it'll get spoilery pretty quickly. But there is a catch to becoming the Summer Queen that is mentioned in the beginning of the book, so it's not a spoiler, and that is you have to pick up the winter staff. And if you are indeed the Summer Queen, then you will become the Summer Queen. If you are not the Summer Queen, you will be filled with winter's cold and you will become Winter Girl and be freezing until the next potential Summer Queen comes along. And so this follows Aislin's adventure. She doesn't want to be Summer Queen, obviously, and things happen. I like this book. I gave it, I think, 3 stars. It was sort of slow paced. Again, I feel like that's the problem with a lot of the books that I read. And again, the ending was too quick and too neat. It also was pretty tropey, but I was prepared for that. And when I know about it, I can go in expecting it. You know, I do a little eye roll, but it's fine. I enjoyed it. It was a cute story. I am considering going on with the series, but I think, as far as I can understand by Goodreads, is that the second book follows different people. And I'm not sure if I like the book enough to want to know about other characters. If you've read the Wicked Lovely series, let me know what the second book is actually about and if you think I should continue on with the series. For now, I liked it well enough. We'll see if I continue. Next up, we're still in April. I read Obsidian by Kristoff and Amie Kaufman. This is the 3rd book to the Illuminae Files. The Illuminae Files, in case you don't know, are told through multimedia in more of the form of a dossier, which the Illuminae group has collected because there has been this huge scandal where a company has destroyed a colony because they had a illegal mine and other reasons that I can't really talk about, and the entire series follows this company trying to cover up their tracks, and they're not doing so well. I like this book a lot. I gave it a 4.5 stars. It was more difficult to get into than the other 2. I know a lot of people really loved this one, and I'm with you. I really loved it, but it wasn't my favorite. My favorite book still remains to be Gemini, which is odd because usually that's what I hear that people's less favorite book is, but I liked it the most. Anyway, 4.5 stars. If you have not yet read the Illuminae Files, I would suggest you do. They are huge books, but they are, you know, told in multimedia, so there's like sometimes 5 words on a page, so it goes really quickly. I will say about this one, I did mention that about Gemini as well, the surveillance footage is really heavy in the last 2 books, so you get sort of more of an actual story feel. You kind of need them, but I wish that they would have been a little bit more creative and had a little bit less surveillance footage and more other means of relaying the message of what happens in this whole story. But alas, I did like it. 4.5 stars. Great conclusion to a fantastic series. Next is the only book that I have read in the month of May so far. It is only the 24th as I'm filming this video, so I have time still to read more books. I've got a week. But as of right now, I couldn't read anything in May. I had no motivation. I really just wanted to watch Netflix because I am physically and mentally exhausted. So I needed a break from reading, and I'm okay with giving myself a break from reading because I'm very much ahead of my reading goals already. But I did finish one book, and it was an audiobook, and that was The Child Thief by Brom. This one is a Peter Pan retelling, and it takes the Peter Pan story and really looks at the darkness in the story, and he wrote his story around that. I think in that aspect the story was done quite well because I have read the original Peter Pan story. I would recommend you reading that before you read this one, but I can recognize the darkness in the original and how it is portrayed in this one. I only, though, ended up giving this one a 2.25, maybe a 2.5, because I felt that for me personally it was too dark. This is a very personal rating for this book. I tried to be a little bit more objective in my ratings, but this one really was personal. I felt that it was too dark. I felt like there was a lot of curse words for these kids that are between, like, what, 12 and 14? I mean, I know 12 and 14-year-olds swear, but this was a little ridiculous. And I know these kids come from bad backgrounds. I don't know what else to tell you. I can appreciate this book. I think he did a fantastic job with the Scottish mythology around the Fae and the evil Fae and how Peter became who he was as the child thief. It was too dark for me. Again, it's very personal rating. You might love this book. A lot of people did. I thought it was too dark. I wasn't a huge fan. But I don't know, I'm on the fence about this one. I don't know, maybe I'll do a book review. Maybe I won't. We'll see. So that wraps up all the books that I read in the month of April and in the month of May. Let me know down below what was your favorite book that you read in the month of May, because I'm trying to build up my June TBR. If you enjoyed this video, give it a big thumbs up. If you have not yet, I would love for you to subscribe. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.